Peter Greenberg's live global travel update is presented to you by Air Canada, connecting the world with more than 1,000 daily flights to 180 destinations and 6 continents.
Happy Friday, everybody. Peter Greenberg here, and welcome to the Eternal City of Rome. Wherever you happen to be, let me tell you where I happen to be. I'm on the rooftop of an incredible hotel. It's officially a new hotel, but it's dating back to a 17th century palazzo. It's now called the Hotel Minerva. It's an Orient Express hotel, a true 5-star hotel. And I'm speaking to you now as the sun is setting behind me in Rome. Of course, lots of stuff to talk about. What a great time to be outside the United States as the government shuts down. The initial reaction, of course, in terms of travel, is not necessarily terrible. The short-term effects have not been huge yet. However, let's go through that. Air traffic controllers are on the job. They're considered essential employees, as are TSA agents, as are U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents, and many other federal agencies designed to work for your safety. However, none of them are being paid, and if history is any indication, if this shutdown continues for more than a week, you're going to see a lot of people calling in sick, and when that happens, air traffic's going to slow down. It has no choice but to. There'll be congestion, there'll be delays, and there'll be cancellations. So we'll be following this as the days and weeks go on. Hopefully there won't be days and weeks, so maybe be hours if people get smart. But in the meantime, there are some other long-term effects. While the national parks are partially shut down, they're going to have some serious staffing issues if this goes on more than 3 or 4 days. And the one thing that concerns me the most is other aspects of the FAA mandate. Maintenance inspections, manufacturing production line inspections on safety, and of course the hiring and training of new air traffic controllers. All that's going to get put on hold if this continues much longer. So we will follow this for you. We'll be back again with another global travel update. Mark this on your calendar, Tuesday at noon. That's this coming Tuesday at noon. Now let's get to some of the other items on the agenda. Speaking of the FAA is actually telling the airlines to crack down on carry-ons. Really? Let's go back and find out what this is all about. You're allowed to bring one carry-on item and one personal item on every plane, right? But the airlines have been cramming so many seats into the back of the plane that these airplanes cannot physically hold even one carry-on per passenger, considering how many seats are on the plane. It's gate check time, which is going to anger a lot of people who may have paid to check their bags, only to find out they could have checked them in for free, even though they didn't want to check them in at all. This is a little silly. It also speaks to something even more serious, the ability of an airline to effectively evacuate in the event of an emergency. I've talked about this for many weeks now, but it bears repeating since the FAA is telling the airlines to crack down on carry-ons. We need the FAA to crack down on itself. The United States Congress ordered the FAA to reevaluate and reconstrue seating configurations on planes, not for comfort, but for safety, to allow the effective evacuation of a plane in the event that half the exits were blocked and in the dark in less than 90 seconds. This has not been done. The FAA slow-walked it. In fact, they ignored it. They still haven't done it. So before you ask the airlines to crack down on carry-ons, Mr. and Mrs. FAA, how about doing what Congress told you to do 5 years ago? And don't act at the airlines' behest. You don't work for them. You work for us. So I'll follow that story for you as well. And speaking of FAA action or inaction or pathetic action, the FAA has now proposed a $3.1 million fine against Boeing for safety violations. Do you know what a $3.1 million fine means to Boeing? Maybe the cost of milk for one day for their employee cafeteria. Guys, this is not a significant consequence for bad behavior. If you're going to fine somebody for doing something wrong when it comes to safety, make it count. And by the way, there's one other thing I need to share with you. We did a story on this a number of years ago for CBS News. In almost every case where the FAA proposes a fine against somebody, whether it's an airline, a manufacturer, an operator, In almost all cases, that fine is negotiated down even further before anybody ever has to pay it. What's the point? A $3.1 million fine at Boeing is basically the cost of doing business and not necessarily changing their behavior. So I just thought I'd mention that while we were at it. And speaking of interesting cases, there was a lawsuit against Uber that was filed back in 2021 about sexual assault against an Uber driver. Uber was sued, the driver was sued, and a jury in San Francisco this week found that Uber was not liable, that even though they failed to put in procedures to prevent this kind of behavior, they weren't negligent in terms of how the behavior happened. Now, here's the interesting story about this. What nobody realized until I happened to see the story, and now you get to realize it, how many current lawsuits are there that have been consolidated just in San Francisco against Uber for sexual assault by drivers? Well, basically about 500 that have yet to be heard. This is serious business. Let's hope that this particular case doesn't set a precedent. Again, bad behavior continues when there are no consequences. Just thought I'd mention that. And of course, we had the crash on the runway at LaGuardia this week between two Delta Airlines planes. They were, of course, the Endeavor department. And we're talking two regional jets, Flight 5155 that was leaving for Roanoke, Virginia. They were taxiing for departure. And Flight 5047 had just arrived from Charlotte, North Carolina. It was taxiing, and they ran into each other. So who wasn't paying attention? Well, guess what? The pilots certainly weren't, and the ground control tower wasn't. And there's your problem. It wasn't one somebody, it was a number of somebodies, but it speaks to greater congestion at airports. When you have bad scheduling, you have so many planes that land that can't get to the gates and have to cross runways and taxiways, and you have so many planes at the gate that can't push back because there's nowhere to move. Guess what happens? Inevitably, fender benders, or in this case, a rather serious fender bender when you look at those photographs of what looked like the cockpit of one of those regional jets. So obviously the NTSB will be investigating, but the results are not going to be surprising. The probable cause will not be surprising. Too many planes on the ground at the same time. It's really as simple as that. They have to change the schedule. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's not a runway in the world that can accommodate more than 23 takeoffs in an hour. So why do the airlines allowed to be scheduling 40 takeoffs in a 60-minute period? Again, that doesn't even count for the planes that are landing that can't even get to where they're supposed to go. I landed in Chicago the other day. We taxied for 36 minutes just to get to a gate. What does that tell you? They took us on the long way in because the short way was not possible to move. All right, we'll talk about that again weeks and weeks from now. There's a movie I want to recommend to you before we get to everybody's comments on our screen. And it's an important movie. It took about 10 years to do. It's called Trade Secret. And before I show you the trailer, the reason why it's an important movie is it talks about governments not doing what they're supposed to do, regulatory agencies not doing what they're supposed to do, lobbying groups being effective where they shouldn't be effective, and of course, the life and death of animals on this planet who shouldn't be allowed to die this way. Roll the video.
Whether you're 5 years old or 50 years old, the polar bear is the most beloved, iconic species.
So how many polar bears you got?
We probably have 300 to 400 of them.
300 to 400 polar bears in stock.
Yeah.
Scientists have described this as a ticking time bomb for the 26,000 remaining polar bears.
To see this majestic, iconic animal being reduced to a commercial product, is this what we're about?
In the last 50 years, we have lost 70% of the world's wildlife. And yet, with this catastrophic decline, nobody really knows what's going on in terms of the commercialization of these species.
These are the biggest polar bears you ever find. Nobody knows that we're doing this.
The results are in.
This story needs to be told.
Norway has this dark secret. That's illegal trafficking right there.
Let's rather speculate in trading gold or diamonds, not endangered species.
There's a dark secret in the conservation world that needs to be exposed. We haven't told the full story.
So check your local listings. It's playing at a number of film festivals right now before a theatrical release. Well worth watching because governments can give you mission statements. What you see in this movie dispels those myths and talks about a much darker secret. Well worth watching. By the way, the guys who did this film were the same guys who exposed the story of Cecil the lion. Remember that? Where some dentist decided it was worth killing this lion just for sport. If you don't remember that story, just Google Cecil the lion. You'll know what I'm talking about. So I highly encourage you to try to find and then see this movie, Trade Secret. Well worth it. One more note about carry-on bags, just switching gears for a second. You know what American Airlines has said to their employees? Effective immediately, they're getting rid of those bag sizers at the gates. Tell that to Ryanair or EasyJet. Why are they getting rid of the bag sizers? They're leaving it up to individual agent discretion to determine whether or not they're going to let you board the plane or not. Here we go again, folks. We need standards, we need rules, but we need space. And if you're cramming more seats on the plane, which affects safety, by the way, it also affects space. It makes no sense at all, unless you happen to be the CFO of an airline that wants to generate more revenue, and that's not really what we're talking about here. Just thought I'd mention that. We'll see how well that works out with people arguing at the gate with gate agents now. One good piece of news, Southwest Airlines now installing free Wi-Fi. All right, we love that. Listen, big shout out to JetBlue, which was first on their block, with anybody's block, with free Wi-Fi years ago. The only problem with the Southwest free Wi-Fi, it's not that fast. It's not as fast as what Delta has. It's not as fast as what other airlines are doing right now, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Okay, now let's go and say hello to some folks. Linda's saying hi from Naples, returning to Egypt and Dubai, March 16th to the 30th. It's before Easter and just 2 days, and the last 2 days of Ramadan. When should I book travel? Well, having said that, it's okay to book it now, but do it with somebody like Google Flights that can alert you if the fares drop precipitously or even noticeably between now and 6 or 7 months from now. There's no reason not to book it now. Okay. Jim and Harriet, normally they're number one. Today they came in number 2. Nice to see you guys, of course. Have you ever flown into Leeds Airport? Yeah, I have. And you say it's an experience with wind and rain, but without, if you really want to experience with wind and rain, fly to the airport in Madeira in Portugal. That's where the pilots come in by crabbing. You know what crabbing is? The wind is so strong off the ocean, they come in like this, and at the last second, they flatten the plane down. It's hold on to your seats. All right, Priya's saying, watching from sunny Chicago. You posted you were on Chicago for the radio show. I did. The show will be tomorrow. It's coming from the First Lady. You know what the First Lady is? A fleet of great tour boats right there on the Chicago River that take you all the way through the city of Chicago and then out into Lake Michigan, a whole different way and perspective to see the city of Chicago. And I guarantee you, even for Chicagoans, well worth the experience. I did it recently in New York on the Circle Line. I'm a born and raised New Yorker. Why do I want to do something touristic like that? You know why? I hadn't seen New York from that perspective ever. Boy, is it worth it. And of course, what they do on this river cruise is they do, using with the Chicago Architecture Center, they bring the docents on board and they give you an unbelievable tour of the architecture of the Windy City. So well worth that. Radio show coming from one of those ships called the Little Lady, and tune in tomorrow between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern time. If you can't find the radio station in your market, no problem. We stream it live right on our website, petergreenberg.com. I hope you'll join us. Lindy's saying, I need to renew my passport, but with the shutdown, should I wait to mail it in? It expires August of 2026. No. Shutdown's not going to last that long. No. You don't have to mail it in, even though the post office is working. But if you want to mail it in, it's okay. Even if it's delayed 2 to 3 weeks, you're well within the margin of safety on this one, okay? You said you hope to go to Canada in May of next year or June, or Japan in December. You're fine. All right, let's keep going here. Camilla's always saying hi from Tucson. Hello, Camilla. Melanie's saying hi from rainy Miami. Terry's also saying hi from Michigan. That would be East Lansing, maybe, I don't know. Jeff saying hello from Santa Monica. Glad I'm not planning to fly anytime soon. All right, Scott saying, do I prefer Rhine or Danube River cruises? I'm going on the Rhine soon. Well, the answer to your question is, what time of the year are you going? That will determine which river I like best. So let me know. Boston Bob is saying, I went on that Princess Discovery cruise to Alaska to celebrate beating cancer. We celebrated that the last time you wrote in. I enjoyed watching the ocean water, quite soothing. Unfortunately, I arrived home sick as a canine. Well, was it a good experience anyway? And I hope the sickness was basically a flu or a cold and nothing worse. But I'm glad you were able to be well enough to take that cruise, Bob. Tyler saying, I seriously can't believe there is no regulation on the number of seats that they can efficiently fit on a plane. There should be at least one carry-on space for every seat. No kidding, but there isn't. Now, there is a rule for how many flight attendants have to be on board for the number of passengers on board. But the airlines need to get their act together, and the only way that's going to happen is if the FAA makes new rules. And the only way if the FAA makes new rules is if Congress forces consequences on the FAA and stops them from slow walking much needed regulation. I'm not denying airlines an opportunity to make a profit. I'm not denying airlines an opportunity to operate their planes. What I'm saying, and anybody who flies a plane can clearly see, that a fully loaded plane, forgetting carry-on bags, cannot be safely evacuated in less than 90 seconds unless you've employed the cast of Cirque du Soleil. Right? Let's get real. And that's even if none of the exits are blocked and there is no fire and all the lights are on. Give me a break. This is real time. It's common sense and it's necessary. All right. Barbara says, I'm still in Umbria, not too far from where I am, wondering how EES will affect us when we fly home in November. Right now, it won't. Okay? You'll be fine. Red's saying, watching from Omaha, I got myself a seat on one of Iberia's Eclipse flights in Spain next year, just $50. Nice bidding. Also, when I'm in Rome, I stay in Ostia, away from the tourists. Yeah, well, listen, let's be honest. Rome, look, it's October and Rome is already crowded. It's still crowded for the summer. Why? It's the Jubilee year, right? It's the Pope. But you know what? You can go 20 miles outside of Rome, and you can go to Fuji. How many people know where Fuji is? I'll give you a little hint. That's where Ingrid Bergman had the affair with Rossellini. Okay, but that's another story. Anyway, a lot of great opportunities. Just 20 miles outside of Rome, and you won't be crowded. Okay, Christian's saying, tell your representatives that Mother Earth always wins. Leave the animals alone and go after the people that mess up our environment. Couldn't agree more. Estrella says, hello from Boston. End of October, good time to go to Scotland. Yeah, just bring a sweater and a nice windbreaker. And you know what? Sit by the fire. It's the way to do Scotland anyway. I even sit by the fire in Scotland in summer. I just got to be near a fire. But yeah, October's fine. Okay. Zora says, I use my mileage through United with Turkish Airlines for next year, but the Turkish airline and United doesn't allow me to pay for my seat. I called many times to Turkish Airlines and also United. They cannot. They're not helping me. What should I do? I want to pay for my seats and I can't pay for it. Please help. Okay, let me guess. You used United Miles to book a Star Alliance flight with Turkish Air, right? And if you look at the seating chart with Turkish Air, they charge for every coach seat. They're even charging for middle seats. This is absurd. So the answer is you don't have an answer because Turkish Air only will sell inventory without a seat assignment, right? What you need to do is just get to the airport early and hope for a window or an aisle. And if you get there early and get the window or aisle, you don't have to pay for it. All right? That's the spirit. Sorry about that, but that's the way they play the game. Tom says, I understand that Southwest is moving to a miles that will can expire program. When, how does that affect people with miles? And yes, I know you should never hoard your miles. Well, Tom, the reason why they're going to expire is because they can. But the point is, even if they didn't expire, what's your opportunity for actually redeeming them in a reasonable way with not outrageously high redemption levels? So what Southwest is going to do now is basically say, if you don't fly Southwest at least once every either 2 or 3 years, then your miles expire, right? That's all it's going to be. But all the other airlines that say miles never expire, guess what? That's okay. But what's the point of them never expiring if you're going to expire trying to redeem them? Don't hoard miles. Okay. Matthew says, I'm going to England next week, London, and a few smaller towns. We're wondering if you have any recommendations for fall-related activities that are worth checking out. Yeah, let me know where you're going, not just London, but those other smaller towns. Email me, peter@petergreenberg.com. I'll help you out. I knew it was Battle Creek, Michigan, Terry, but thanks for reminding me. Scott's saying, I'm sailing on the Rhine mid-October. When is the best time to take a river cruise in Europe? Well, seasonality notwithstanding, remember, some of the best river cruises are going to happen a month and a half from now when they do the Christmas markets, right? And very soon, you'll see me for Global Travel Update. I'll be on a river in Europe next week. So that ought to give you an idea of when is a good time to go. October's not bad. Remember what we did last year? We cruised the Mediterranean in December. We were the only ship in the harbor. Nobody in Barcelona was telling us to go home. No lines at the museums. We had a great time. Understand why you're taking this trip. You're not taking this trip to get a suntan on the river. You're not taking this trip to basically, spend a lot of time outdoors. You're taking this trip to do what? Immerse yourself in the culture. Have great food experiences. Have great museum experiences. Even get out on a bicycle. Put a windbreaker on. It's the best, right? So do it. All right. Okay, Jim and Harriet say, why is it lately when we fly Delta, the flight attendants start serving snacks and drinks just before we land and then have to scramble to prepare for landing? Well, it depends on how crowded the plane is, but usually an hour before TOD. TOD stands for top of descent. That means that last 30 minutes when the plane is preparing to land, right? So basically 90 minutes before you touch down is when they usually serve the snacks on long-haul intercontinental flights. Now, if the plane has 360 people on board, that's a lot of snacks to serve. And basically the question is, are they serving it from front to back or back to front? How do you know what they're doing? Ask when you get on the plane. Each airline has a different routine. On some planes, they serve back to front based on what? Odd number of the plane, of the flight number, right? If it's an even number, they do back to front. Crazy, right? At least you'll know when you're going to get served. All right, here we go. Evelyn saying hi from Denver. Boston Bob, so he's giving me correction on how he got sick. I enjoyed the cruise, got a VIP visit to the bridge. Always fascinating, right, Bob? Food on board was just so-so. I actually lost weight. Bob, you're the first person in history who ever lost weight on a cruise. Congratulations. Wow. You must have been the profit center on that buffet line. All right. Joyce saying, can you get compensated on a cruise if the ship can't dock because of weather conditions if you ride in? And the answer is no, you can't. It's a specific clause in your contract, which you signed when you bought the cruise, that weather is the great exemption. If the cruise decides, in the interest of passenger safety, to bypass a port because of weather, they can substitute a port. That's also in the contract. They have the right to do that. But if they have to bypass the port because of weather, guess what? You don't get much. Now, in certain circumstances, if they have to bypass 3 or 4 ports because of really bad weather, they may give you a discount off a future cruise, or even maybe even give you a free cruise if it's that bad, right? If you contracted for 7 ports and you only got the 2 of them, well, you're due something. But if it's just 1 port and it's weather, the answer is usually no. All right. Kristen says, my family is flying to San Luis Potosi in Mexico from DFW via Volaris for all the Thanksgiving week. This is the first time using Volaris. Thoughts of this airline compared to Southwest Air? I actually love Volaris. Most people don't realize this, but this Mexico City-based airline flies to about, I may be wrong by 1 or 2, 23 cities in the U.S., and their airfares can't be beat. The whole financial model of this airline was to take the bus routes that so many Mexican citizens take and compete with the bus routes by offering low-fare carrier, otherwise known as Volaris. In fact, if you want to fly from Los Angeles to New York, Volaris doesn't fly it directly, and they don't fly it nonstop. But if you want to change planes in Mexico City or Guadalajara, guess what? It could be as low as $150. And if you're not carrying a lot of bags, guess what? It's worth it. So I've had no problem with Volaris, and I fly it all the time. Yeah, I do. All right, let's keep going here. First of all, I want to give you guys a little hint. Travel Detective Season 11 is on the air now, and what's about to premiere as a part of a special show that we did. It's called a 1-hour special called Hidden Alabama. Check this out. Coming soon on PBS, Hidden Alabama, and a visit to the real, original Field of Dreams. Before Wrigley Field in Chicago, before Fenway in Boston, there was Rickwood Field. Built in 1910, it's the oldest existing baseball park in the United States. Joseph Marbury played here often. And I had the honor of getting to suit up, and I joined him on the field.
Rickwood Field has always been special to me. Even today, I'm excited.
Well, you got your glove on.
You want to play catch?
Yeah, sure do. All right, let's try one. I'll go over here.
Throw me a curveball.
All right, there you go.
All right.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You feel younger today?
Oh, yeah, I feel young, and I feel like I'm 19 again.
Just part of what you'll see on Hidden Alabama. Coming soon on PBS. And by the way, one of my other special tour guides on Hidden Alabama, Martin Luther King III, as we visit Birmingham. And of course, my experiences later on in Selma on the Edmund P. Pettus Bridge. So check out Hidden Alabama, coming soon. Check out local listings. That'll be on PBS, and shortly after that on Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, and YouTube. All right, let's go to some of your pre-sent questions that we got earlier this week. This is from Michael. I wanted to ask your advice about flights being operated by another airline. I said I'd not fly with American Airlines again, booked a trip to Rome with British Airways, and after I booked it, I found out it was operated by American. Could you explain more about this, about how one airline is operating another airline's flight? It's called code sharing. Everybody does it. And here's what you need to look for, Mike. Anytime you're booking a flight, I don't care what airline it says it is, and it's got 4 digits in the flight number, not 1, 2, or 3, there's an overwhelmingly good choice or good chance you're flying on a code share flight operated by another airline. And you need to ask ahead of time. They need to reveal that to you. And there could be as many as 5 or 6 different flights for any one flight using a One World Alliance flight. You know, I've been on an American Airlines flight that was also listed as Japan Airlines, Finnair, Royal Jordanian, and British. Right? Same thing with the Star Alliance, right? United, Air New Zealand, Lufthansa, Turkish, same deal. So you need to know which airline you're flying on, which will also determine sometimes whether or not you're even going to get an upgrade or even have a seat preference, like we just discovered with one of our other viewers about Turkish Airlines versus United. Okay? That explains it. But you got to ask. 4 digits almost always means it's a code share flight. Here's one from Arlene. Says, I want to let you know that tonight, while trying to check in for my international flight, Delta told me I could not, that I had to present the credit card I used to make the purchase at the airport. I told them I no longer have that credit card. I purchased the ticket 9 months ago. They said they could issue me a travel credit, and I had to repay for the flight using a new credit card. Here's the catch. The credit card expires, or the credit that they gave me expires in 1 month. What a ripoff. Well, what Arlene is talking about is this. Anytime you buy a ticket in advance and you cancel the flight, you usually get a credit, right? But the credit's usually good for 1 year. But 1 year from when? It's not 1 year from when you were going to fly. It's 1 year from when you purchased the ticket. Now, some airlines even make it worse, and they make it 6 months from the time you purchase the ticket. So, again, be very, very careful when you buy a ticket. Ask them what the rules are. Does the clock start ticking the minute you buy the ticket on that credit validity, or does it wait another 6 months? That answers your question, Arlene. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that's how they play the game. Nancy says, my husband and I will be celebrating our 50th anniversary in July of 2026. Congratulations. We're planning to go to Italy, where I am right now. Several questions. Should we do this in May, July, or September? Second question. I'm thinking 4 to 5 days in Tuscany and 4 to 5 days on the Amalfi Coast. All right, let's answer the first question first. You said May, July, or September. Let's rule out July. We'd like you to enjoy your trip. My guess, September. It is the magic month in Europe, and the best time to be in either of those two places. 4 or 5 days in each is a respectable amount of time. And if you email me to peter@petergreenberg.com, I'll give you some suggestions for both Tuscany and the Amalfi Coast. Okay? Oh, you know what? I want to give you one other little tip. We're right in the beginning of the NFL season, right? We have no idea who's going to the playoffs. We certainly have no idea who's going to the Super Bowl. All we know is where the Super Bowl is going to be, right? So let's say you want to go to the Super Bowl. You don't even know who's playing, right? But you know it's going to be a sellout. And you want 2 tickets and you want 1 hotel room. Well, if you wait till the last minute, those tickets will start at $4,000 and the hotel room will start at $1,000. So I'm going to give you my handy dandy tip of how to go to the Super Bowl for free, no matter who's playing. Here's what you do. Now, it's only October now, right? Super Bowl's in February. So you know what the Super Bowl is. You call the concierge at the best hotel in town, in that city, right? And you say to them, listen, I'd like 6 tickets to the Super Bowl and 3 hotel rooms. Now remember, you don't need 6 tickets, you don't need 3 rooms. And give them your credit card. They'll go out and buy 6 tickets and get you the reservations for 3 hotel rooms. Now, you know what's going to happen about 3 weeks before the Super Bowl? You're going to get a call from that concierge saying, do you really need all 6 tickets? Do you really need all 3 rooms? And the answer, of course, is, as a matter of fact, I don't. So you use the concierge as your ticket and room broker. You sell the other 4 tickets back at an inflated price. You sell the other 2 hotel rooms back at an inflated price. He makes money. You make so much money. You are going to the Super Bowl for free. Ta-da! Right? Pretty easy, right? Okay, that's my suggestion for now. And now, let's have some fun. If you're a bird watcher, you're going to love this one. Let's go to the photo of the week. Listen to this. Congratulations to Sandra Collins. She writes, we just returned from Kenya and Uganda. Besides an exciting safari and gorilla trekking experience, we decided to visit the Mabamba wetlands on Lake Victoria, which I've been to, by the way. Go see our show called Hidden Uganda, which is beautiful. We were in search of the rare shoe-bill stork. Look at that picture, which is 5 feet tall, right? And loves lungfish and can stand motionless for hours. It gets its name from the huge beak that looks like a shoe. Yeah, definitely that looks like that. And this bird has a very prehistoric look. We were thrilled not only to see 1, but to see 2 shoebills. Sandra, congratulations on that. Thanks for sending the picture. I've never seen a shoebill, and I've been to Uganda many times, so thanks for sharing it with me as well. If you think you've got a photo that qualifies as photo of the week and you want to be right up there with Sandra, here's what you do. Photo contest at petergreenberg.com. Just send us that, and if we agree, it goes right up there next to Sandra's photo. All right, let's scream a few more here if we can. Okay. Eli says, as the CEO of Silverwing Travel and someone who deals with clients that accumulate miles, I could not agree with you more. Do not hoard miles. I agree. All right. Bottom line is, reminder, tomorrow, Ion Travel, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, actually 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time, coming from Chicago. And the first lady tour boats right there on Wacker on the river. Of course, Travel Detective Season 10 playing now, and 11 playing now. And coming up next month, be on the lookout for Hidden Alabama, PBS, Amazon, and Apple TV. I'm leaving Rome at the crack of dawn tomorrow. I will see you on the air next week for Global Travel Update. That'll be on Tuesday from a river near here, but I'm not going to tell you where. And I'll give you this hint. It's not in Italy either. So travel safe, everybody. Have a great rest of the weekend. Let's hope the government gets its act together, comes back online. We're obviously going to be covering that story. We'll update all of that on Tuesday as well. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see you in a couple of days.
Peter Greenberg's live global travel update is presented to you by Air Canada, connecting the world with more than 1,000 daily flights to 180 destinations and 6 continents.